All right. Welcome everyone to our restorative mobility, fancy name for joint health or mobility and flexibility. Just same class, nothing really different. So main focus is just stretching. So we'll do our stretches from the chair, stand up, and then also on the floor. So again, any requests that you folks may have, just let me know. And I know some of you are gonna join me right after our active class that starts at 9. So if that's the case, we might get here a little bit more on the fatigue and relaxed, tired side. But if you skip that or just are in this specific class, then I'm letting you folks know now in case our energy level is a little bit down. It's probably because we're a little tired. So let's go ahead and look left to right. And so for those new folks, we'll be stretching, just relaxing, not burning too many calories in this class, but if you ever feel tight or injured and you can't get a workout in and you're just trying to loosen up, then this is your place to go. So now we have up and down. We have this style of class offered every day. So I understand it's a little bit slower pace. If you feel like you want to do a little bit more, then I recommend joining our 9 a.m. classes. But if this is the stuff that you need, then welcome. And sometimes we don't know that we need this until um, afterwards when we feel more relaxed at certain exercises. Because if you're like me, I usually, uh, will only search this style of movement when I'm in pain, when something's hurting. I never choose to do this when I'm feeling good, I feel strong. Switch. When I feel a little bit more energized and confident, I usually want to do a tougher workout, burn some calories, try to sweat. But you don't want to ignore this type of wellness for your body. Let's go ahead and look to our left, add a little bit of pressure with our right hand. Let's look to our right, bit of pressure here. Very good. Let's go ahead and sit on our left hand. Bring your right hand over. Yeah, the transition from spring to summer is kind of rough. I mean, the term ends, you get gifted a 3-day weekend, and then it's all right, let's go to 6 days a week. So, yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, if you're in this class, we do meet Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. So it'll be the same style as this. Let's switch. And I believe we have the Juneteenth holiday in about 4 weeks. We also have 4th of July weekend. 4th of July lands on a Saturday this year, but it's observed as far as holiday, I think on the 2nd and the 3rd. So that's the biggest break of the summer. And yeah, and if we happen not to meet for some reason, then I'll post a recording So, but I think we'll see plenty of each other this term that, you know, I think if we get a day off, we're not going to be too sad about it. So let's bring our hands back and then elbows down. Allow the weight of your elbows to drop. Good. All right. Let's go ahead and work on our shoulders a little bit. So just some shoulder circles. So shoulders up, forward, down, back. Continue with that. I'm just gonna go in the chat. Yeah, hi Lisa. Yeah, so you're not the only one that has reached out. So yeah, for the Friday and Saturday classes, I haven't uploaded the Canvas course shell for that yet. So I should be posting that one up. Yeah, for you're not the only one. So I should be posting that up either tomorrow or Thursday. Okay, so let's go in reverse. So you'll see another two tiles appear in the next 2 days, and it's helpful, right? Putting the name of the or the day and the time on the tile that helps. Okay, I no. So I think it helps a little bit if you instead of me putting a little cartoon of someone stretching, I think it's more helpful to have Monday and Wednesday at 9, and so you just kind of see what class you want to attend. Well, it didn't help you today, huh, Debbie? I was like, why is Debbie saying no? But yeah, Debbie and Cherise hopped in Monday's class today. So I felt like, yeah, this whole weekend, every day felt like a Saturday. Um, even Friday, like I felt like I had 4 Saturdays in a row. Let's switch. Um, we had our team banquet on Thursday evening, and it ended with karaoke that went all the way up till midnight. But I left a little earlier, and then Friday I felt like I was, excuse my French, but it almost felt like we were just like hungover. Like what happened yesterday, but there was not a drop of alcohol, and we were just, I was just relaxing and trying to build the courses for Canvas. And then Saturday I went on a nice bike ride to the beach, had breakfast with some friends, and yeah, just I've never built a Lego set in my life. And let's bring that hand back. And Julian got gifted a lot of Legos over the holidays, and he's been asking to build some. But I think we got this little car set, and the car set had about 300 pieces. And Julian's the type that he'll lose 20 of those pieces in the first 20 seconds of that box being open. So let's switch. Um, So yeah, so I just had everything organized. I told them, hey, don't play with these little pieces. We're gonna keep everything here. And my mistake was that I had a chair. I have my laptop right now on a box, and the box sits a little bit lower. So my mistake that I didn't consider was that I should be doing this on a comfortable, nice, elevated table because what happened was for the 3 hours that I spent making that Lego, I was like this, just building it. And after 2 hours, I started feeling, and I was on a bike ride for about 2 hours. So I'm here, and then I come home and I'm here again. So I think I may have irritated something on my back. We're gonna go ahead and do so clench your fist right in front of you, head down and punch forward.
Now you're just getting old, Julio.
No, it's really, I mean, not I don't want to sound mean, but it does feel like something like
Yeah.
I've heard some of you too say like, oh, like it feels like a little warm or hot, like if it's like a nerve thing.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
that's what it felt like. It didn't, I thought I had like a pimple on my back. I thought I had something, but it was just like this like burning sensation. And yeah, like anyways, I Julian asked, if he could build the other Lego set. Immediately after I was done with the first one, and I told him he's gonna have to wait a couple more months for that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a while to get your Lego building
Yeah.
approach
Yeah,
down, a little bit of experimenting. The dining table is the best, and then
yeah,
have a
Yeah.
way to put it all away after an hour,
yeah.
and come back and then bring it out again.
Well, let me,
Right.
and sorry if we're going off course. I know this is the
Let's
first.
see.
So this is the
Oh,
little car. So
a lot of little pieces.
so you see this like
Yeah.
space over here?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't look right to me. So I think what happened is there's like a couple pieces that are curved that I put on the wrong spot.
Easy to
And and then like
those things are tricky.
so I think when I figured it out finally, I was like, I'm not gonna spend another half hour taking it apart. What if I lose a piece? So,
Close enough.
so I'm just, it's there. No one else but me knows if it looks like a car, so that's all that matters. Let's reach up and then do our cat scratching and come back. And yeah, and that's one of the smaller ones because, well, I, I think Jan just told me that she's an avid Lego builder. Um, so that one was about 300 pieces, and I've seen some that are, about 1,000 pieces or maybe more. And I'm like, oh man, like definitely we have to have a whole room just for that. So about four more. All right. But yeah, I am learning. So let's see. Let's do our single arm windmill. But yeah, the instructions are pretty detailed and helps a lot. Um, I didn't like, it's a car and there's like sponsored names and stuff. So we had to put a bunch of little stickers everywhere, and that seemed like that was a little bit more tedious than actually building the Legos, especially because they're small stickers. So you want the edges to fit right and everything. So yeah, so Julian has his Legos, and then my wife has a bunch of Legos that are for plants, like little succulent plants and all these. And yeah, so there's Legos everywhere. So let's switch. So my friend gifted Julian the the Lego set, and my friend keeps asking, that was in December. So he would keep asking me, "Hey, did Julian build the car yet?" I'm like, "You do know that he's just turned 4, and this Lego set it says for 9 and up." I was like, "Julian's not gonna build it. It's gonna be me building it." Um, so let's go in reverse. But I did have Julian put the last piece. So yeah, so it was the last tire on the car. So he did his part. Okay, so we're gonna work on our chest a little bit for here. Up. Jan, do you have a display for your Legos?
At one point we bought those IKEA Billy bookcases with the glass doors
Yeah, yeah.
because dusting them is really, really a pain.
Yeah, I can imagine. I didn't think
But
about that.
At one point, we've gone through phases. We've only got a few out now.
Okay. Let's do our trunk rotation. So gentle rotation. So just grab a hold of the chair, rotate. Let's switch. So yeah, so I think right before last week, I had mentioned my calf got really tight. Um, so I took the week before last almost completely off. And then last week I started running, you know, about 50% of what my average week would look like. And that went well. So I'm gonna try about 75 to 80% of my typical week this week, and then hopefully everything's smooth. So next week I'm back to normal. But we'll see what happens. All right, let's go with our hip opener. So bring that right leg out. Add a little bit of pressure. And I just found out our regional championships this year in the fall is gonna take place at Irvine Regional Park. So, if any of you, it's usually like the first Friday of November. So I'll keep you folks posted. Switch. But yeah, on Sunday, they had a nice celebration. It was my uncle's in-laws. They were turning 75 and 80, and they celebrated their birthday together. And it was really, really nice. They had just a slideshow going throughout the entire, like party. Let's bring that right heel up to that knee, and then their family's Mexican. They had some folklorico performers dance with their girls with the big dresses and the guys with the big sombreros. And then at the very end, it was very pretty. The two of them were in the center, and they were circled by all of their grandkids, and they all had a special dance for them. And yeah, it was just really cute, like seeing all of them. And my baby cousin, she's like 33, and my cousin Johnny's about 36. So the range of grandkids was from like 36 to about 8 years old, pushed down. But yeah, but they all partook. It was pretty cool. And the food was great. They had al pastor and fish tacos too, just making them fresh right there. And a lot of Mexican candy. So
And pupusas, too, huh?
no, no pupusas.
Oh, no, no, no.
No,
Okay.
that was
Oh,
Mexican, not
oh,
Salvadorian.
oh, 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 okay.
Yeah, let's switch. Yeah, there was a theme to it. It was like I said, like traditional Mexican with like the big dresses and like the floral stuff. So
Mm.
we didn't get that memo. It wasn't the invitation, but we just completely went over our head. Um, so we weren't, we kind of fit in with like our outfit a little bit, because it wasn't too specific. But I remember this happened a few years ago. Let's push that knee down. We got a we didn't get the actual digital invitation. Our friend had hired us to do our photo booth business at his mom's 70th birthday or his dad's 70th birthday. But apparently on the digital invitation. So we're pushing down. It said it's an all white party, right? So everyone's wearing white and everything. So, we don't get the digital invitation. We just get a text message telling us where to go. So of course we show up and I'm wearing like just regular formal clothes and my wife is wearing she felt more out of place. She was wearing like black pants and like a very pink shirt. And we get to the party and my friend's looking at us upset. He's like, "What are you guys wearing?" And we're like, like, we figured this is appropriate for your mom's or your dad's birthday. It's like, "No, it's an all white party." And then I'm like, "Well, you never told us that." So yeah, sure enough, the whole party, was white and like tan colors, and we were sticking out like a sore thumb. Um, but yeah, that was but it worked out because we were technically workers. So, but yeah, after that, I always look at the dress code. So let's do our lower leg extensions here. So for our hamstrings, has anyone ever had a hiccup like that? Or they were completely misled? I had another experience like that. Let's switch. Maybe about this must have been like 20 years ago or like 15 years ago. But anyways, I got invited to an 80s party. So my friend invited me to one of her classmates' parties and it was yeah, 80s themed. So, I'm like, what should I wear? She's like, I don't know, like she was giving me all the details for like a disco outfit. I'm like, this is not 70s, this is 80s. And so let's do our leg press. So anyways, I didn't go venture off too far from what she had told me. So I went dressed up as like an 80s basketball player. So little short shorts for basketball players, like high socks. I had my wristband, I had a headband. Like I just yeah, I look like a miniature Larry Bird out there. So I go to this party and tell me why everyone decides to dress in full denim with like rockers hair and yeah, everyone just looked like they came from a Metallica concert and I'm there with my basketball outfit. So everyone wants to take a picture of me because they think I'm a hired entertainer for the party. So after a few pictures and I was just like, okay, I think I went and sat in the car for like the next 2 hours because it was cold. Everyone had their denim jackets, so they were warm. And yeah, I was just tired of getting pictures taken. But yeah, that was my experience at the 80s party. So I have bad luck with theme parties.
Like
That's
charro, ah?
what's that?
Like charro?
We're gonna go here and then just rotate. ¿Cómo dice? Bring that.
No, no, no entendemos que el número grande dijo que sí. No. No, oh, sí.
So
Okay.
swing that heel in. Let's switch. Was the 80s a pretty good decade for you folks? You guys have good times in the 80s? And Jen's like, oh yeah. Nice. Got some stories? All right.
No.
ABCs? No stories? So again, just working on our ankles here. I always wish I had a time machine. I just want to like relive from when I was like 4 to like 6 years old all the time. Like I think about my old neighborhood, like smells, sounds, my first grade teacher, little friends that, you know, I think like my friend who just moved to Rhode Island, well, not just last year, so we'll switch. They move out there and their little ones move out there as well. But now their little ones are in social media or have their friends on contacts and they'll be friends forever. But all those little friends I had when I was like between like 5 or 4 and 10, I have no idea what they're doing right now. Right? And then we're gonna work on our arches. So we're about done with our chair exercises. So we're gonna transition to our standing. So feet are flat and then just scrunch your toes, scratch at the floor. Did anyone live out of state, out of California growing up? And then now keep your feet flat and pull your arches towards your heel. And then if you happen to have a golf ball, I have a baseball here, I just want to roll out my arches a little bit. So if you have something like that around you, this is restorative. So I was kind of trying to like, you know, I guess build this class. Things that I wanted to add a little differently. But like, yeah, just kind of like the foam rolling component. So if we do any foam rolling in any of the classes, this might be the one class where we might add it towards the end. So maybe on Thursdays we'll do that. And then just go back and forth. Let's switch. All right, let's go ahead and put that chair away. Actually, let's have it nearby. We'll do some mobility with our hips. Okay, so you could use the bottom portion of the chair or the top. We're just gonna do our leg swings over. So again, we're just gonna go over and then in reverse. And if you could just almost do a continuous circle, that'd be some really good mobility as well. All right, let's switch. So switch legs. All right. So let's grab that foam roller or that broomstick. Going to check the chat. So again, remember the Friday and Saturday classes aren't up yet, okay? I'll post them in a couple of days. All right. Okay. So you have your item. your broomstick, just go up and down. And swing left to right. And let's go ahead and focus on that left shoulder. So left arm guides and right hand pushes. All right, 30 degrees forward. $60. 90. Towards the back. All right, let's focus on that right arm now. So right arm guides, left hand pushes. All right, 30 degrees. $60. All right in front of you. All right, towards the back. All right, bring that foam roller behind your back and then up and down. Now up. All right, very good. Awesome. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and do a little bit of our standing stretches here. So just trunk rotation. We have about 10 minutes left. So left to right. Morning, Ella.
Good morning, Coach.
How are you?
I'm back home after being evacuated.
Oh, you're in that area?
Yes,
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm glad to be home.
Yeah.
It
uh,
was very stressful, but I had a comfortable place with my son and his family down in Irvine.
Okay, good. Oh, man. So what's the situation like now?
Where I am, it's okay. It's a smaller perimeter, And I guess there's not going to be an explosion. That's what they were concerned about
Right.
where I am. And they say the air is fine. The air quality is fine.
Your hula hoops. Okay, but the tank's still kind of leaking, right? Is that?
Yeah, they haven't gotten it under control completely yet. And there's an area right around there that people aren't able to return yet.
I see. Well, yeah, I'm glad you're a little bit more relaxed now. You're
Yeah,
working out inside right now?
I'm inside. Yeah, I was gonna do the workout down there and then drive up here.
Yeah, switch.
And I was out early,
Yeah,
went for a little jog. And at 7 o'clock, I said, what am I going to do for 2 hours
yeah, yeah,
until class? So I packed up my stuff
yeah.
and
A right
drove
quad
back.
stretch.
And then I got the wrong class twice when I was signing on. So
Don't worry, you're not the only one.
I,
You're
I,
not alone, Ella.
Yeah,
well, twice I was
We're
alone.
normal.
I got on there and it said one person, and I thought, uh-oh.
yeah.
And
No
then I
shit.
Were
ran
you
out of
on Monday
battery.
also?
Oh, gee.
Yeah, Sharice and Debbie thought it was Monday.
We're normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we were considering earlier in the week um camping outside in our backyard. And then yeah, we just, obviously things escalated and they're just talking about, based on the wind conditions and the wind patterns where things may flow. And we're like, let's just kind of move this little camping thing for another weekend. Just never know. So what do we have here? Hi, Kimberly. Good morning. So let's do our hip opener. So we'll incorporate a little bit of balance work here. So let's drive that knee up. If I feel like if there's anything that we could always use that we don't do too much of throughout the week, it's balance stuff. So I think we'll incorporate that. And again, if you are in my 9 a.m. classes, you'll be doing a lot of the more active stuff, sweating, heart pumping, a little bit more in that class. And the stretching, relaxing stuff, let's switch, is going to be from 10 o'clock to about 10:45 or so. And I don't want to just keep it all stretching because I think stretching for an hour or 45 minutes each day, 6 days a week, could just get a little bit repetitive. So we'll try to incorporate some balance stuff as well. And then maybe next time when we meet on Thursday for this class, we'll spend a little bit more time on the floor because there's a lot of floor stretches. Okay. So let's go ahead and do our let's do our sumo our deep squats. Okay, so deep squat and hold. So just come down here, drop your hips as low as you can, torso's upright. So again, if you're in this class, next time we meet is Thursday at 10 a.m. So we'll be here. Shift left to right. And then just let's go ahead and put your hands down on the floor. And then we're just gonna try to like extend the knees, bring your hips up a little bit. So just a little bit deeper of a stretch for the hamstrings. I know we usually do the one where we hold our ankles and then extend. But this one, we're just bringing our hips a little bit lower, extending here. Oh, heard some popping. Right, and then we'll just reach up towards the ceiling. Right now, we'll probably finish up soon and I'll go over Just a little bit of information. But again, if you want to get a little bit more out of these courses, the modules do have more information. So a lot of information in those modules that you could spend a good amount of time reading. Let's name right. Lots of videos as well. So, and I'll try to designate a module for each week and just put it up there on the front page of the Canvas so you could just navigate to it pretty easily. So, you could go ahead and continue stretching on the chair. Just gonna go over a few things. So yeah, we're pretty much done here. Hi, Kimberly. Let me know if you have any questions, but let me see. So many classes right now. So yeah, so hopefully you guys like my little AI picture. Getting bored sometimes, but I think that's pretty well representative of our class as far as what we're doing. So, as I mentioned, if you are on my Friday and Saturday class, those tiles will appear soon, probably tomorrow or Wednesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday, tomorrow or Thursday. And again, hopefully I know some of you thought it was Monday today, but hopefully the titles with the days and the time help as well. But tomorrow, being Wednesday, we have at 9 a.m., we have our cardio basics and intervals class. So if you're in that class, expect a little bit more active work. It's pretty much like our cardio and core class in the past. So expect that tomorrow. And then core stability and posture. So for that, we'll probably work on some floor exercises, as I was mentioning earlier. So if you're on my class tomorrow at 10 a.m., we'll be doing a lot of like the cat-cow stuff, a lot of hinging stuff, a lot of stuff that we're going to be on our floors. And then for posture, a lot of that is really just keeping your back nice and strong. So we'll just try to do stretches and movements that put us in a position where our back is nice and straight. So again, when it comes to posture, we're really thinking about not slouching, not causing unnecessary movements that are going to cause pain in the long term. And then also, if we have arthritis, we want to talk about some information for that, which anti-inflammatory, there's so much food out there. And you can start by turmeric. Turmeric is, a natural anti-inflammatory. I know ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory, but you have too much of that, you're going to ruin your kidneys. So you don't want to become dependent on that stuff either. But yeah, do we have any other questions before we head out? So I know some of you were with me for both classes. I appreciate you. I also understand if I get old and you get sick of me for maybe too many hours each week. I get that. So yeah, if you choose not to come one day, no hard feelings. I understand. I'll always put the recordings on the front page if you're traveling. I know later or sporadically throughout the summer, I'll be doing a little bit of traveling, but I think like I mentioned on the last class, we'll just have a recording in lieu of those days, but hopefully it's not too often. But any other questions?
No question, Julio. Gracias. Buen día.
Okay. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. If not, I'll see you next time.
Thanks,
All right,
Julio.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Julio.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day. Bye, folks.